Hi, I'm John, your host, and welcome to Heart of Care, a podcast by ANCU. Here, we delve into the real voices of healthcare, sharing stories of resilience, humanity, and the unwavering heart that drives it all. Join us as we empathize, learn, support, and even find moments to laugh together. Thanks for being here.
Heart of Care, special episode, introducing The Light That Refuses to Stay Out. Hosts, John and Dr. Evan Hope. Welcome to Heart of Care, a podcast about the human side of healthcare, society, and the systems that shape our lives. I'm your host, John. If you've been listening to Heart of Care for a while, you'll know we don't shy away from difficult conversations. We've talked about doctors burning out behind closed doors. We've talked about patients being turned away from public hospitals. We've talked about families falling through the cracks of systems that were never designed with them in mind. But today's episode is different. Today, we're stepping back further than we ever have before. Because sometimes to understand what is breaking inside our institutions, we have to ask a larger question. Not simply what went wrong, not simply who is to blame, but why human systems, even those built with good intentions, so often drift away from the people they were created to serve. That question sits at the center of a new book, written by someone many of you already know from this podcast. Dr. Evan Hope is a Melbourne-based general practitioner and the author of The Doctor for Life, Beyond the Waiting Room. His new book is called The Light That Refuses to Stay Out. It is a deeply personal reflection on conscience, institutions, power, fear, belief, and the strange patterns that seem to repeat themselves throughout human history. Evan, welcome back to Heart of Care.
Thank you, John. It's good to be back. This book began with a question I could never quite stop asking, not only in medicine, but in politics, religion, history, media, and ordinary human life. Why do institutions built to do good so often end up causing harm? Not always through cruelty. Not always through corruption, but through something quieter, a gradual drift away from their original purpose. I grew up in Myanmar and later came to Australia. Those are very different countries, very different systems, very different histories, but underneath them I kept recognizing the same human pattern. Institutions beginning with genuine moral purpose, and then slowly becoming more focused on protecting themselves than serving the people they were built for.
And we saw it repeated throughout history.
And eventually I realized something uncomfortable. The mechanism underneath all of it is not fundamentally political or religious or ideological. It is human.
The conscience. One of the most interesting parts of the book is where you begin, with the conscience itself.
Yes. Because I think before all institutions, before ideology, before doctrine, something already exists inside human beings. Most people do not need to be taught that cruelty feels wrong. A child sees another child suffering and reacts emotionally before they fully understand morality intellectually. Something responds first. That moral sensitivity may be imperfect, it may be fragile, but it seems to exist before systems arrive to shape it. And every major institution in human history originally emerged from attempts to organize that instinct. The law, religion, government, medicine. At their best, they were attempts to scale compassion beyond the individual. And at their best, they achieved extraordinary things. But institutions also face a temptation. The temptation to preserve themselves first. And over time, those two questions slowly separate. What serves the people, and what serves the institution? At first, they look identical. Eventually, they are not.
What this book is not, I think it's important to clarify something here. This book is not an attack on religion or politics in the simplistic sense.
No, not at all. Some of the greatest moral courage I've ever witnessed came from deeply religious people. This book is not anti-faith. It is not anti-government. And it is not a political manifesto. It applies the same scrutiny to religious and secular systems alike, because the pattern is larger than any one ideology. This is not an academic text pretending to possess all the answers. It is a personal reflection on conscience, on fear, on tribalism, on power, on the ways human beings slowly negotiate with silence, and on what it means to continue asking difficult questions, even when institutions become uncomfortable with them.
Why now? Why release this book now?
Because I think we are living through a period of profound institutional distrust. People no longer fully trust governments, or media, or corporations, or religious institutions, or sometimes even medicine itself. And many people respond to that moment with anger or despair. But I think, before reacting emotionally, we first need to understand the mechanism underneath the pattern. How does institutional drift happen? Why does it repeat? Why are human beings so vulnerable to it? Because once we understand the mechanism more clearly, we become less easily manipulated by it, and perhaps more capable of resisting it, even quietly.
The title. Let's talk about the title. The light that refuses to stay out. What does that mean to you?
It's not a metaphor for simple optimism. It's about something more stubborn than optimism. History repeatedly shows that even inside deeply damaged systems, some people still refuse. A person tells the truth anyway. A doctor speaks honestly anyway. A citizen refuses to look away anyway. Not always loudly, not always heroically, sometimes quietly, sometimes alone. But the conscience keeps returning. That, to me, is the light that refuses to stay out.
One final question. Does the book offer answers?
Not always, and that is deliberate. The most important questions are often the ones each person must answer for themselves. I may be wrong about parts of this book. Possibly many parts. This is simply how the world appears from where I stand, shaped by one particular life, one particular history, one particular set of experiences. Someone else, standing elsewhere, will inevitably see things I cannot. But I think honest thinking requires the humility to admit that. The book is not optimistic in a simplistic sense, but neither is it hopeless. The hope it offers is the kind that becomes possible only after we stop pretending difficult things are not there. False comfort closes the eyes. Honest hope keeps them open.
The Light That Refuses to Stay Out by Dr. Evan Hope is available now through major retailers, including Amazon Kindle, Apple Books, Google Play Books, Kobo, and audiobook platforms worldwide. But before we close today, there's one more thing we want to share. This episode is also the conclusion of Season 2 of Heart of Care. And beginning in Season 3, we're going to do something a little different. Each month, Evan will release a free audio reading of one chapter from The Light That Refuses to Stay Out here on the podcast. Not behind a paywall, not as a marketing campaign, but because the purpose of the book itself was always to share these ideas openly with whoever may need them. If you listen and the work resonates with you, you're welcome to support the project by purchasing the book or audiobook later. But whether you buy it or simply listen along month by month, thank you for being part of the conversation. Because these questions do not belong to one author alone. They belong to all of us. And if these conversations resonate with you, if they make you think, question, reflect, or see something differently, please consider sharing the podcast with your friends and family. Because the ideas that shape a society rarely spread through institutions first. They spread person to person, conversation to conversation, one human being quietly handing something meaningful to another. And in many ways, that is what this entire project has always been about.
I know not everyone can afford books, and some conversations matter more than the transaction attached to them. If these chapters help someone think more deeply, question more honestly, or feel a little less alone in the questions they carry, then the book has already done what it was meant to do. That matters more to me than numbers. Thank you for letting me join John.
You're most welcome, and thank you for your generous contribution. Until next time, stay curious, stay honest, and keep asking the questions that matter. You've been listening to Heart of Care.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode from AMCU Media, where real stories, healthcare, and advocacy come together. We release a new episode on the 28th of every month. We're a small, independent team doing our best to bring you meaningful conversations. And your support means the world to us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and Facebook page. Just search for AMCU Media. Got a story or topic to share? Email us at amcu@strmedical.com.au. Together, we can do better for care, for community, and for change. Until next time, thank you, and take care.